Hey everyone, and welcome to a deck tech for Opus 14. This time we are going to look at my favorite of the Final Fantasy 14 Primal cards, and that is Ramuh, Lord of Levin. This card was not spoiled ahead of time, so I got to see it for the first time when it officially released, which was really cool, especially because Ravana was such a letdown of a card. And then when I read this one, I was like, that's really, really neat. So for those of you who don't know, Ramuh, Lord of Levin, if you have 2 or more lightning summons in your break zone, he's going to gain haste. And then when Ramuh, Lord of Levin, or your lightning summons deal damage to a forward, you just break them. You break them automatically. So, of course, as soon as people saw that, they're like, right, well, let's do some spicy text around that. And I've had so much fun with this mono lightning list. So let's get right to it with the lightning summons we're going to be running. And I mean, first and foremost, this is of course what everyone thought of, which is Raiden from Revenant Wings. He's an EX burst. He's going to deal 2,000 damage to all the active forwards opponent controls and draw you a card, all for 1 CP. Which in the past, that 2,000 to all, this really not much, right? It only hits active. But with Ramuh, this means if Ramuh is on the field for 1 CP, you not only draw a card, you kill all the forwards they have that are active. Amazing. Simply amazing. They're going to do whatever they can to avoid this. I've seen a board of 4+ forwards go down to this card before, so it's such a powerful combo. And in particular, what's great about Raiden is Raiden doesn't target. So I've used that to get around things like the new Omega, or Braska's Final Aeon, or just anything that, and it also means they can't fizzle it. If they kill that target, they're not going to fizzle the summon. Ramuh just blink and hits the board, or Raiden just blink and hits the board, so just what a combo. I mean, this could be the deck on its own right now. We got a supplement, of course. So the real thing is, as people were looking at the summons, they realized, there's not really a whole lot of great lightning summons, right? We want summons that deal damage. The Odins are pointless here because the Odins are going to outright break anything anyway, right? So we just want stuff that's going to ping with the Ramuh on board and then kill it. So I've really leaned into the cheap summons here. 3 copies of Aldromech the Wroth. EX Burst again, 1 CP, is going to hit an active forward for 6,000, which again, if Ramuh's on board, then instantly breaks it. Or, if you get him to damage 5, which is possible because this deck can be very aggressive, then it on its own it deals 9,000. So 9,000 to an active forward, you don't even need Ramuh on board at that point. You're probably going to be killing something off. I really appreciate just how cheap this card is, and again, even if you don't have Ramuh on board, 6,000 is enough to an active forward that if you swing in, and I've got some little guys in here, I'll swing in, if they block it, you just stack the Aldromech on top, boom, they just lost their big body to one of your little guys, so I've really liked this one in testing. And then last but certainly not least, oddly enough, the one I've cast the least, not necessarily because it's the least useful, I think it's like a draw thing. I just don't happen to draw it when I have Ramuh on board. This new Ramuh is, it was built for this card, because if you take this card away, this card is awful. It's absolutely awful, and I don't like that they designed it to only work with this guy. So you choose 2 forwards, they don't have to be active, which is very cool for Lightning, and it deals them 1,000 damage, and 1,000 more for every card named Ramuh in your break zone. It doesn't count him because he's Ramuh, Lord of Levin, which is ridiculous. And so it only counts itself. So at most, you're going to be doing 3,000 damage to 2 targets. That's assuming the other 2 are already in the break zone. But that's not what it's for. It's there so that when Ramuh's on the field for 2 CP, it basically says, hey, kill 2 forwards. That's what you want to use it for. Here's your suite of summons. There are other ones you could lean into. The Opus 6 Ramuh, which does like 7k to an active and dulls something. I thought about that one, but honestly, the cheaper the better I found for me. And that one, to get the most out of it, there's just more conditions you need to satisfy. So these are really nice. I've had plays where I'll put Ramuh down. I've only got one of them in the break zone. I cast the Raiden, wipe their board. Now the Ramuh has haste, and he can just go in right away. So fun, so fun. So how do we supplement it? We've got 2 copies of the new Sylph backup. Every Primal got a backup that reactivates when that Primal enters. This Sylph is it. It makes Ramuh really great to play off of 3 backups. The Sylph is one of them, because you can dull 3, pitch a card, put out Ramuh. The Sylph's going to reactivate. Now you can cast your Raiden for that single CP. And do not overlook this Sylph's effect. You get to choose a forward you control, and then the next damage dealt to it is reduced by 2,000. That is huge. It lets your guys, normally when they would trade, they can survive stuff. It's also not tied to just Ramuh. You can use it on any of your forwards. Although, do remember, it can only be used if Ramuh is on the field. To go into the Primal, since we're here, I did briefly try Ravana in this deck, but there weren't enough ways to remove characters in the game to get Ravana to reactivate over and over and over again. And my thoughts on that too is, to me, Ravana is only worth it if he can attack at least 3 times in a turn. And I say that because we have Estinian and Behemoth King as big lightning bosses that basically can attack twice or deal 2 points of damage. And they're both cheaper, and they kind of have better effects, and they're way less awkward to get online. So if they can already do 2, to me, Ravana has to at least do 3 to actually make him worth it. But enough about him. 2 copies of this Black Mage backup. It's a cheap backup you're happy to put down turn 1, and it can get back a Lightning Summon for your break zone. So again, if they got a big board, you can crack your Black Mage, boom, hit the Raiden, wipe out their board, grab this little Ramuh, whatever you need to. And the last of our summon tricks is Man in Black. When Man in Black enters, you get to choose a Lightning Summon of cost 3 or less. Hey, that's all of ours. And then you can just cast it for free that turn, which is really awesome. He is actually one of the few cards I loved with that Opus 6-3 Ramuh, because it's the perfect cost, and what you could do is you could zap something or dull something and give him haste, and then he can go in right away. But regardless, you've got Ramuh on the field, you drop the Man in Black, boom, Raiden comes in, wipes the board, Aldramech, knock whatever out, so really nice little card. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the summon fun ends, because in Mono Lightning, there's just not a whole lot of like summon recursion or forwards that use summon effects. I've looked through them all. I think this is kind of the best stuff we have for the moment. Maybe in the future it'll get better. You could, in theory, do like a Fire Lightning deck or a Lightning something else deck, but because Ramuh his effect only goes off if it's a Lightning Summon in particular, I wanted to do Mono Lightning for it, and I think it's fun with the Primals. So speaking of Mono Lightning, hey, it's a trapdoor. Look at that fun mono art. What a cool little monster. So if you control 3 or more Lightning backups, he's going to become a forward with 8,000 power, which is really nice. And then, when he's put from the field to the break zone, you just choose a forward your opponent controls and you break it. Really nice. You can 2-for-1 people that way. Once I've had them, block one forward, they'll trade, and then I'll break another one on the way out. The funny thing about this card, though, as much as I like this card, this is weird. There's only one of them in this whole deck, and I almost always draw it in my opening hand. Like, when it can't even become a forward at that point, so unfortunate. So, how else do we want to round this out? Let's go for the Kingsglaive package. This is Nyx. I'm just going to go ahead and lay out all the Kingsglaive since they all work together. Libertas, of course. Kingsglaive package has been pretty solid since Opus 11, and I really like them in here. They work really well together. Crow is an excellent backup to use for Nyx. So the main thing is that when Nyx enters the field, you choose a job Kingsglaive and you put it into the break zone. So it can be any one of these cards. Then when you do, Nyx gets to outright break any forward. And then in addition to that, if Nyx sees a Kingsglaive go to the break zone, he can either get haste till the end of the turn, or you can choose a forward and dull it. It's really easy to overlook that effect. But so one of the best Nyx targets is Crow. Nyx comes in, you put Crow into the break zone, Nyx breaks something, you can give him haste for the turn, and then Crow will also get you a forward back when she goes to the break zone. But let's say you use Libertas, I've seen a lot of people do that. Libertas is going to get you back backups when Nyx enters. And then you break the Libertas, so now let's say you're on defense, you're defending, and you have Libertas defend for you, and let's say he trades, or even if he doesn't trade, now Nyx triggers as well because he saw Libertas go, now you can dull something else. So don't forget that anytime Nyx sees a Kingsglaive go to the break zone, he gets that effect. Really fun. Luce's break it's nice in a pinch. Generally, you don't want to use it because it lets them draw a card, but again, if it's the end of the game or you just absolutely need it, it's there. These guys aren't Kingsglaive, but they are 15 cards, so they can be pulled off of Libertas. 2 copies of Glauca and 2 copies of Aranea. Been a great little combo since Opus 11. Again, they're 15 cards. They can be pulled off Libertas. Glauca is going to make every single Lightning forward you control 1 cheaper, which is really nice. And then he can give something 1,000 power when any forward enters as well. Really nice playing Ramuh for 4 or Nyx for 3. Aranea, of course, on damage 3 is going to get back any 2 cost, which will show you a few more of those, So here, that's the Kingsglaive package. Let's show you a little more aggression, right? Hey, got a motorcycle? It's Roche. She's coming for a drive-by. I actually hate this character in the remake. He was such a dumb character that I thought didn't need to be in there. However, I love this card. I think this card's really neat. If you don't control any characters, you get to play Roche for free. His cost is reduced by 2, and he has haste. So if you see him in your opening hand, whether you're going first or second, you just, okay, the very first thing you do, you drop Roche, hit him for a free point of damage, and then you can set up your backups or whatever after that. And then at damage 3, he gets 3,000 power. So not irrelevant. He'll go up to a 7k. It'll be 8k once we get Lulu out as well. But I really like this card. It's just fun design. I wouldn't necessarily mulligan just to see him, but if you do see him, and especially if you've got a backup to play behind him, by all means, go to town. And another fun one, Alba. She's just the card that keeps on giving. I thought this card was good when I saw it, but man, just seeing her in practice, it's just so nice. The only tricky part is you ideally always want to drop her when they have a summon in the break zone. That'll give her haste. Then she can attack right away. Then you remove a card to pump her up by 3,000. On occasion, I've dropped her just to remove a key character, but usually you want to make sure there's a summon in there first. So I've had a few games where it's a little awkward where my opponent just refuses to put a summon in the break zone, and then she's, not as useful, but she's still really good. I mentioned him earlier, 2 copies of Behemoth King. A really good card if you're kind of struggling for other things to do. He's also just a good threat, honestly, that if he gets targeted with anything by a forward's ability, he gets broken. Or the forward that target him breaks. So if they want to try to hit him with a White Tiger Lysine Nimbus, if they want to try to freeze him with a forward, whatever it is, if Broskis targets him, Broskis going to break without even doing another trigger, which is really good. And again, now he has this threat of when he's coming to attack you, he's basically going to do 2 points of damage. And then on damage 5, he automatically has built-in haste, and you basically can't stop the 2 points of damage at that point. One thing to be aware of, though, it is any forward that targets him, so don't give him a bump with Glauca, otherwise you're going to break your own Glauca. Red Mage, nice cheap backup, can grant something haste, really good if we want to send Aranea in, or the Behemoth King in, Golbez, whoever. Really, Behemoth King's probably his primary target. 3 copies of Alua. And 1 copy of Cid of Clan Gully to search her out, just because it's nice to have a lightning backup that searches. And some people have said Alua has fallen off a little bit, and while I can understand that, I still find this card to be relevant. Shoal is still a great special. Again, getting Alua and Behemoth King down, Shoal, let them both go in, is really nice. And it's her protection. To me, as long as she has that bubble, she's always going to be relatively useful. Because some decks will struggle to deal with that bubble. Some of them, of course, fire decks with a backup Mutsuki, or maybe Bismarck, and they've got a bunch of forwards, and they can just dole one to ping it and cancel it. Some decks don't have a problem, but some decks do really struggle to get around that bubble, so I still like Alua a lot. I think she works really well here. Fishing out our backup line, 3 copies of Lulu. If you're playing mono, you got to be playing Lulu. Honestly, sometimes I want to put her up to 3 just because I think she's that important, but trying to diversify. And yeah, again, Lightning, similar to Ice, has low body forwards, so more power is better. Putting Behemoth King or Ramuh naturally up to 10 is excellent. And a couple one-offs. Zemus, when he enters, you can get back a forward. If he enters on damage 3, you'll get a forward and a backup, which is really nice. So he's just a good one to throw down. Sakura is a great card. This is one I've almost wanted to put more copies of because it's just so relevant, being able to break a 4 cost or less on entry and develop a backup, which is really cool. And, she has a restriction of its mono lightning, but hey, guess what this is? Yeah, mono freaking lightning. And finally, probably one of the coolest new backups in the game is X-Death. He is expensive, but it is well worth the cost. You're getting 3 things when this card hits the board. You are developing a backup. You can break any forward, you can break any forward they control, and then you get a 4 cost or less from your break zone, and you play it right to the field. Make sure you're aware that sometimes I've actually confused myself. I'm like, oh wait, no, I can get any forward, but they're a 4 cost or less I can break. No, you can break any forward on their field, and you can get a 4 cost or less back from your break zone, which, as you can see, is quite a few of the cards in the deck. It's not going to hit the 5 cost, but getting to hit Alua, or Alba, or Aranea, Nyx. You can do a big swing Nyx play. And honestly, so there's not a huge target in here, that is the killer target. But I don't find I've needed that. I've honestly used that on Roche before, or Alba, or Alua, just because, again, it's such a swing. I get a backup, they lose a forward, I get a forward, my forward has haste, so it's going in immediately. And then try to save that extra copy of X-Death if you can, because Black Hole is an amazing special where you can just remove a forward from the game. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Absolutely feel free to run a 3rd one of those if you want to try to use Black Hole more. Again, I found kind of for space, I just didn't want to put 3 8-cost backups in. Because the thing is, too, if you're just using him, yeah, he can be, you want to make sure you can fulfill all conditions. And last, but certainly not least, Fel Thanos. This card, similar to Sid Randell and Ice, is very dependent on the matchup. So I would highly recommend you really scout your opponent's field, and you'll know if this guy is going to matter or not. If they're playing Wind Water and they have Leviathan or they have Garuda, he's not going to do anything. If they're playing Fire and they're using Braska's Final Aeon and a bunch of high-cost cards, he's not going to do anything. But if they're playing versions of those decks with really low-cost cards, this guy can do a lot. He's great against Monks. Ursula can never throw anything at you as long as he's on the field. He's pretty solid against Doga as well, because they can't fight with Ceremobius. They can't Hecaton you. I believe the only summon that deck naturally runs that can do anything about him is Remora. So you use him, when you have him, if you have him in your hand, you scout the field. Is he going to completely shut their board down? You put down Fel Thanos. Are they going to be able to get around it easily? Then you don't worry about it. So that's the deck. Really fun. Great hit and run lightning feel. The Ramuh's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of success with it. It's a joy to pilot too. It feels quick. It feels like there's always something you can do. It feels like it's got a lot of angles it can attack people from. So good stuff. Let me know what you think. And let me know if you found any other summons you like to run with Ramuh, or if you found any ways to make Ravana work. Feel free to let me know, and we will see you later. Bye.